Hear the legends old and new. Wisdom flow like rivers true. Share your heart, the stories thrive. In this cast we're all alive. Oh.
What is up, everybody? This is Chase, and welcome back to the Wellness Center podcast, where we are destigmatizing mental health one episode at a time. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to another amazing story of resilience and triumph as we celebrate yet another life of another amazing person. Guys, I'm so grateful you're tuning in. Life for me at this point is crazy. Typically, I'm filming about a month in advance. So this is after Christmas. We're hitting the New Year's. So happy New Year's, everyone. I hope everyone has started the New Year's powerfully and beautifully. You have your goals, you have your ambitions, you have your drives, and everything's going good. At this point, my third child is going to be born, and I am going to be extremely tired. So if I look dead inside on the show, just understand that's because it's my third child, my second daughter, and I am excited and terrified all at the same time. So guys, okay, enough about me. I want to let you guys know that my guest today, guys, she is honestly awesome. Her energy, her enthusiasm, who she is as a person, just her character, from the little bit of experience I've had with her, she seems like an amazing person. So I'm really excited to bring her on. I'm really excited to start celebrating her humanity, talking about her life. Before I do that, I do have my two huge asks of you guys. The first is join the Wellness Center tribe. If you're not already a part of it, please make sure to do that on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening to this podcast. It's really simple. The way to do that is either by hitting the subscribe button if you're on YouTube, or the follow and download button if you're on a podcasting platform like Apple or Spotify. So guys, growing the tribe is going to help destigmatize mental health. It's going to help this show grow. It's going to show your support. It would mean the world to me and my guests. So that's my first big ask. Guys, my second big ask for you is, if you're on a podcasting platform, please go ahead and give us a review that you feel is worthy of the show, of the episode today. My preference is 5-star. So yeah, make sure to go and do that as well. That also helps grow the show. So guys, those are my two big asks for you. Again, like and subscribe and leave us a review. If it's on YouTube, obviously shout out the guest today. If it's on Apple or Spotify, leave us a 5-star review, a comment if you would like. So guys, without further ado, I do want to bring on my phenomenal guest. So guys, by way of epic introduction, my guest is a burnout and anxiety coach dedicated to helping others regain balance and peace. She is a former full-time therapist who transitioned to coaching after experiencing burnout from seeing 25 to 30 clients weekly. She took a courageous leap to start an online coaching business, inspiring others to make bold changes for a better life. She shares a personal journey to show how hard work and determination can transform mental and physical well-being, and she teaches lifelong nervous system regulation skills to empower individuals to thrive. So without further ado, we have the one and the only Gabby Wnek on the show. Gabby, how are you doing today?
I'm so good. Thank you for that amazing intro. It was so cool to hear from your perspective. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for having me.
yeah, my pleasure. I'm really, really excited to have you on the show. I love therapists. I love life coaches. You guys are all just people that are trying to make the world a better place. So I fully support that.
Yeah, I there's always this quote that really stuck with me. Like, I can't change the world, but if I can help change one person's world, that's it. Like, that's the mission here. So
Oh
I hope I
yeah.
can.
Oh, absolutely. This show is destigmatizing mental health, and it's helping change the world, right? This is our legacy when you think about it,
Yes.
right? This is what will surpass us. So no, absolutely, we are changing the world, and I love it. And if you're that one person listening today, make sure to like and subscribe to the show. And
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
but Gabby, just so me and our listeners can get to know you a little bit better, can you just share like a few cookie cutter answers as to like who you are and what you like to do?
Yeah, so I'm 100% Polish. I have my parents that came from Poland, so I'm first generation. So that's a
Mhm.
huge part of who I am,
Mhm.
a huge part of my identity. I love the ocean. That's like my happy place, like any kind of water. I'm a Cancer, so I'm a water sign. So the ocean is like if I can find seashells all day, I'd be the most happiest person in this world. I love to do things that are artistic. I love to dance. I just started to crochet last year, which that was frustrating at first, and now I love it.
Mhm.
Diamond art, just like really fun, creative stuff. I love traveling, going on adventures. And I love what I do. I love being a therapist and a coach, and I love helping people, and I love giving back, right? And sharing my story and just helping, yeah, that one person, right? That can make a difference in their life.
That's super cool. And is like the artistic side of you, because that sounds like that's what you really align with. Is that something that you've been aware of and attuned to like your entire life, or is that something that you found later on?
I danced since I was little. So
Okay.
I did Polish folk dancing. So again, part of my culture.
Okay.
And I was put in that when I was really little. But some of the other artistic things I think I've developed at first it was a tool because I was really dysregulated and had high anxiety. But I think now has become something that I just love to do. Like it's just
Yeah,
a part of me that I think has come up after I've done all of this work on myself, and
gotcha.
obviously that I will continue to do for the rest of my life because we are always working on ourselves, right?
100%, right? The life of recovery and growth isn't a you do it for a year, get to a point
Yep,
and coast, right? You're either, in my opinion, there's the discomfort of growth or there's the discomfort of complacency, and you have to choose which one you're uncomfortable in. But
exactly.
I'm curious about this Polish folk dancing because in my mind, and you're going to excuse me, right? This is totally American thought process here. I'm thinking clogs and lederhosen, but what does Polish folk dancing actually look like?
Yeah, Poland has a lot of different regions, right? And
Okay.
so it depends on what region. So there's costumes. So like yes, what you were talking about, but it looks different.
Okay.
Um, and so depending on which region. So each region has their own costume, has their own dance, sometimes even has their own dialect, right? And we really just focus on different parts of Poland and did those specific dances. And we would go to international festivals. I've been to Poland, I've been to Hungary, I've been to China for a festival, which was so cool, such a crazy experience.
Yeah.
And it really was a great way of like just connecting with other people that also are Polish and like love to dance and, share that culture with other people.
That's cool. So are these dancing communities like they were in America or were they from connections in Poland from your parents?
Yeah, so there's a lot of dance groups in Poland. There's a couple big famous ones, and
Hmm.
then I think people from Poland came here and also made groups as well. So like I'm from the Chicago area, and so
Okay.
there's a bunch of groups that dance in this area because Chicago is the second largest city outside of Warsaw that has Polish people. I mean,
Oh,
there's
okay.
so many of us here, and so I think naturally when you have so many people of the same culture, like
Mhm.
we want to share our culture and be in that with each other. And so one of our ways of doing that is dance.
Okay. That's super cool. And I'm kind of curious about your parents. What kind of convinced them to go from Poland to Chicago of all
Yeah.
places?
My dad came here. It was either joining the army or it was coming here. He didn't really have much of a choice. And,
Gotcha.
my grandpa came here before my dad. And, my grandpa kind of knew that my dad would make it here.
Yeah.
And my mom and my brother stayed in Poland. And then my dad came here, worked for a little bit, and then went back for them. And then I
Gotcha.
was born here. So my dad came here with 50 bucks in a suitcase. And, through his resiliency and his strength as a person, has created a beautiful life here,
Mhm.
and has given me and my brother like so much opportunity. And for that, I'm eternally grateful for his hard work and dedication to his family.
No, I love that. And what a testament and honor to your father and fathers everywhere who have just had to
Exactly.
learn that grit to survive. And honestly, I think that question segues perfectly into my first main question. So I would love to dive into your life, Gabby.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if you could take us back to a young Gabby Wnek. When were some of the first times in your life where you started struggling with your mental health?
Yeah. Perfectionism. That was it for me.
Yeah.
I was always needed to have straight A's. I was in gymnastics when I was little and I would get so upset when I couldn't do a skill perfectly.
Hmm.
And my mom always told me, she goes, we never put that on you. Like that was just something that you had in you since you were little. And it
Mm,
always had to be, I had to do the best. I had to overachieve. I had to be perfect.
gotcha.
And from that came anxiety, right? Because if I
Right.
wasn't, then I wasn't the best, right? I wasn't achieving all of these really high standards that I think I put on myself, or maybe it came from somewhere else. Who knows? We never really know exactly where all these things come from.
Hmm.
But it really was, and there was another experience when I was little that my mom always tells me about, how like a kid told me that my mom wasn't going to come back for me when I was like little and like preschool.
Yeah.
And so then I got really scared. My mom was like, it took me like 3 weeks to get that out of you. Like you were holding that in so much.
Hmm.
And then, I had to work with you being like, I'm always going to come back for you. Right. So like some of that fear,
Hmm.
started when I was little, and then I'm guessing it morphed into perfectionism and overachieving and anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing, by the way. I know that that's a very personal,
Yeah.
emotion and experience. So to be willing to share that with me and the guest, I really appreciate it. I'm curious, how did the perfectionism work with like friend groups and stuff? Do you feel like it kept it very surface level, because you were always trying to be the best, or do you feel like it actually helped you in relationships?
I think I never really thought about like perfectionism with my relationships before, but I've always had this kind of like running theme of I'm always the one who had to like reach out to friends, and I'm wondering if
Yeah.
that was because like I wanted those relationships to be either perfect or the way that I wanted them to be.
Hmm.
Right. And it's like it was always me reaching out. And then I was like, well, why am I the only one reaching out? Right. And that's kind of
Yeah.
been like a running theme. But like as I've gotten older, I realized that like maybe they just weren't the right people or the right fit for me.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think relationships are a two-way street. They're supposed to be I reach out, you reach out. But I think
Mhm.
when we're younger, we kind of just want to do whatever we can just to keep a friendship or relationship of any kind. Right. As we develop and grow older, we move towards friends. So it's like, what can I do to, keep friends
Yeah. Yeah.
around?
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so you struggle with this perfectionism. You go through school. You're doing, like you said, you were doing dance and all these things. Was kind of junior high and high school kind of the same story for you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I took my ACT like 3 times because I did so poorly. I was never a great test taker.
Hmm.
But when I got a 20 the first time, I like bawled my eyes out. Like I was
Hmm.
like, this is unacceptable. I'm never getting into college. So some of that catastrophic thinking, the anxiety,
Yeah.
right? Like no one's ever going to accept me with as low of a score. I eventually got a 23. Still didn't feel like it was good enough, but it
It,
had to be because I'm not going to retake the ACT 5 million times, right? And so, but some of that you can, looking back, I can see some of that anxiety, that what if, right? Kind of thinking I went
yes.
to college perfectly fine.
Yeah. That's interesting how different people are. Because I remember I took the ACT. I think I got an 18 or 19 my first time, and I was just like, that's good enough. And
Yeah, right,
yeah,
exactly.
it's just people are so different. Okay, so you're starting to develop, just kind of from, and please forgive me if I'm saying this wrong. You have this perfectionism. It's turning into pretty aggressive anxiety.
Yep.
You get into college. What happens then?
Yeah. So I go into college as a secondary education and biology major. I come from a line of teachers. My mom's a
Okay.
teacher, my brother, my sister-in-law, my aunts in Poland, like so many of them are teachers. So I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I'll teach.
Hmm.
I took biology, liked it, was good at it, but I'm like, what am I going to do with this? I'm like, I do
Hmm.
not want to teach. Like, especially middle and high schoolers, like, I cannot handle the attitude that comes with that age period. I'm like, there's no way, right? So I went
Right.
undecided, and I took a sports psychology class with a sports psychologist, and I was like, I want this. I want to do this. Like, the
Hmm.
psychology, the way that she taught the class, I was like, this is it. And so I declared psychology. And then the overachiever that I was like, wait, I have extra room in my credits. Maybe I can minor in something. So I found
Right.
social work.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, well, I still have room. So then I decided to double major because the overachiever was like, bang for my buck. We're already paying for college. Might as well get 2 majors.
Right.
right? So
Right.
like that part of me was really, really active.
Yeah.
And in college, I actually developed chronic pelvic pain.
Hmm.
All the
Okay.
stress and anxiety and some of the other fears that I had that I didn't know were really under the surface.
Yeah.
And that really was a huge stressor, but also just like trying to figure out what was going on in my body. Like I was going
Yeah.
from doctor to doctor to doctor trying to figure out what was going on, and nobody knew because there was like structurally nothing wrong. I had every scan, every MRI done, and they're like, "You're fine." I'm like, "But I have pain, and this is
Hmm.
not normal to have pain in your pelvis. Like that's just not unless you have like a UTI or, like an infection of some kind, right?"
Right. Some temporary stuff.
Exactly. And so like the anxiety wasn't helping. But I still graduated. Like I still, did my thing while trying to figure out what was going on with my body, later to come out to find that it's all neuroplastic pain. So it's mind body pain. It's
Yes.
all, it's real.
Hmm.
All pain is real, but it's coming from my brain and my nervous system.
Interesting. Okay. So major, are you like an LCSW or an
I'm an
LMFT?
LCSW, yeah.
LCSW. Okay, super
Yeah.
cool. So, okay, so I'm curious. You have this pelvic pain. You're learning about like mind-body connection. I feel like this
Mhm.
segues perfectly into my second question, which is the heroine's journey. And for
Yeah.
those listening in for the first time and curious about what the heroine's journey is, it's essentially an extreme moment or a pivotal trial or something that ultimately had to make Gabby shift her life into being something better, right? So I'm curious, what was that moment for you that
Mhm.
broke you so you had to make a shift?
Yeah. So after I graduated, went and worked in community mental health
Mhm.
for probably the first 2 years, but there was a cycle that kind of developed because I was in so much pain and working full time, like I couldn't. And so I quit multiple times in my career because it was just so overwhelming,
Mhm.
like pain. And then eventually that kind of led to burnout. But
Mhm.
it really wasn't until my last job that I had at a group practice where I was seeing 25 to 30 clients plus a week, still in crazy amounts of pain. At this point, I knew I had neuroplastic pain,
Mhm.
but I was trying to work on it. But when you're seeing 30 clients, sometimes plus a week, it's really hard to work on your pain when you're also managing other people's emotions and traumas and stress. So I remember this is the pivotal moment. I had a client, a weekly client,
Mhm.
that walked into my office, like weekly client, right? And I looked at him and I went, "I don't care what you're talking about. Please leave." And I went, "Oh my gosh. Like this is not okay. You
Yeah.
cannot this is dangerous to be in the room right now. I cannot be apathetic towards my client.
Mhm.
That's not how therapy works."
Right.
And it was honestly really scary because I mean, I've gotten to levels of that, but I've never gotten to a point where I've actually thought that in my mind. Like
Gotcha.
that was really, really scary. It's scary for a therapist. That's not how you're supposed to act towards your clients or even think about. And I told my director and I like took the day off, but I also knew taking a couple of days off wasn't going to be enough
Mhm.
to like really work on this.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't until a couple months where I was seeing 8+ clients, completely neglecting myself, barely had time to eat, barely had time to go to the bathroom and even like do my notes and all of that. And it was really months of me coming home and taking Klonopin every night because my pain was at a 10 plus every single night.
Oh, gosh.
Months of taking Klonopin. That was the only thing that helped me sleep to do this all over again.
Right.
And it was after like months of that, I think it was probably like April. I was like, "Gabby, what are you doing? Like, this is not okay. Stop. You cannot keep sacrificing your physical mental health for a job. Like, this is not okay anymore." And I
Yeah.
really had to just like get really mad and really angry
Mhm.
at all of this and like the system and how it works and myself and like pushing and pushing and pushing. Like, I can't push anymore.
Mhm.
And that was the moment where I was like, "I quit. I can't." Like,
Yeah.
finally, but this was a different kind of quitting than before. This was like, I need to actually take months to figure this out and to like rebuild my capacity because there's none. There was like literally none left for clients.
Yeah, that makes sense. It kind of reminds me of the analogy of like where you put your hand in the door and you just keep on slamming the door, and then like at some point you have to realize you're like, wow, this really hurts,
Right,
and
exactly.
you got to realize you're like, wait, I'm putting my hand in the door. You got to take your hand out of the door to finally close it. But okay,
Right.
that's awesome. Okay, so you get to this point, you realize there is nothing in the emotional bank anymore. You are totally spent.
Totally.
Okay. That's awesome. And this, again, next question, right? What skills did you develop at that point, and how have they evolved over time?
Yeah. My biggest thing was like really working with that part of me that I abandoned during that time.
Okay.
So
So
like
like parts work?
parts work. Yeah, I
Okay.
really had to like sit with her and like really like essentially like cry her out in that way of like I'm so sorry that I abandoned you. Like and really having to sit with that part and that emotion of like I'm just so sorry, like please forgive me, like I didn't know, like I was pushing, the overachiever was taking over, the perfectionist was taking over.
Yeah. Could you,
And
so,
really,
and really quick, could you explain for
yeah.
the listeners what parts work is, just so they can
Mm,
follow along with you?
totally. So parts work comes from a therapy called internal family systems. And we all have parts, right? Like, so we have parts that are managers. These are parts that are protecting us, right? So, like, some of these things, like overachieving, perfectionism, people pleasing, these are kind of those protective, like, they're just trying to protect you. And the only way that they know how, because these parts were developed usually through childhood or through different experiences. And then we also have what's called firefighter parts. So, these are the parts that, like, put out the fire. So these are like people who have addictions and things like that. Like these really extreme behaviors are like, oh no, like we're gonna take all of this out. And then we have something called the exiles, which are like our really core wounds from childhood. Usually we develop those from trauma.
Yeah.
And so it's really working with these parts because we all have parts, all of us,
Hmm.
and really working with them because they're just trying to protect us. But we want to give them kind of a new narrative because the way that they're protecting us like isn't helping us anymore.
Love it. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's cool. So, okay, so you're talking to this protector part of you, and you're letting her cry herself out.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the other part was like I just took time to be with the pain because I was
Mm,
running away from it. And so I had to do a lot of work of sitting with it and like letting it be and letting it do whatever it needs to do. Like when you're in chronic pain and you're towards the end of the journey, you get something called extinction bursts. So like
mhm,
the pain will like flare like crazy because the brain goes, "Oh, she's catching on to us." Like how else can we make her scared? Can we make her scared if we give her a 15 out of 10 or a 20 out of 10? Like
mhm,
can we still grab her, right?
mhm.
And so I had to sit in those 15 out of 10, 20 out of 10 without medication, without
Dang.
the exit button.
Yeah, you had to meet yourself.
And it was one of probably the hardest things that I've ever had to do. And I also had to sit with fears. I have a lot of fears of like intimacy, physical, emotional, and I had to like sit in that fear and I had to expand my window of tolerance to like
Hmm.
sit with that fear and be like, we're gonna be okay
Hmm.
no matter what happens, and like really do kind of like exposure work with myself. And I couldn't do that with seeing clients, which is why I took that break to
Yeah.
really like work on that and increase my window of tolerance before I could go back to work again, which I never really did that work before, which is why the cycle continued.
Yeah, that makes sense. So and thank you for sharing all of this. I think this is so important. So the sitting with your stuff, right? This 15 out of 10, this 20 out of 10,
Yeah.
was it literally just like, I just have to sit here and experience this, or were there meditations, mantras, breath work? Was there journaling? Was there I am statements? Like, was there anything that you were doing to help work yourself through those moments, or was it literally just sitting there?
A lot of it was really sitting there, but yes, of course, like I've been meditating for years.
Hmm.
So like meditation, like exercise if I could, connecting with, family members and friends and like and a lot of it honestly in those moments was distracting, like being in it, but also like I would crochet a lot during when I had really high pain. I would crochet because like I could still feel the pain, but I still had something else that I was like focusing on because it's really hard to just be in pain when it's that high. But like you're still in it. You're because you're feeling it.
Right.
And yeah, I mean there was like there's so many I think skills that go into this, but really my coach has always told me like the only way is through.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like the analogy of the buffalo in the storm, if you've heard of that one.
No, I haven't.
So there was some research that was done on cows and buffaloes when a storm comes in. And
Mm,
when the cows see storm, what they do is they turn away from it and start to run, and the storm will obviously catch up, but they'll keep running and they'll stay in the storm longer. Buffaloes will face the storm and go through, and it will make the process faster. So it's kind of learning to face those things like what you're talking about.
hmm.
Kind of a saying that goes around in my groups is like be the buffalo, right?
Yeah,
Embrace the
right.
pain, embrace those 15s and 20s like you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of it for me was also just like grounding into like my feet. Like my feet would
Mm,
always tingle. So it's like, oh, look, there's a part of the body that doesn't hurt.
mm,
Right. Or
yeah, yeah,
like grounding techniques of like looking outside or like those moments of just like little regulation of like, look, I'm sitting. What does it feel like to sit? What does
hmm
it feel like to have my feet on the ground? Like I'm here. Like I'm still here, no matter how big the pain gets. Like I'm physically here. I'm okay. Even though it
yeah,
doesn't feel like I'm okay.
yeah, that makes
Those
sense.
are really helpful too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. How long did you deal with this, like, kind of this phase in your life where you were emotionally depositing back into your own bank? Um,
Hmm.
and with the flare-ups and the pain, how long did that last you before the pain? Because it sounds like the pain has gone away, if I'm assuming correctly.
It's significantly better. I'm probably at like 90% at this point.
So how long did amazing, by the way, how long did it take you? How long did you have to wade and sit in your stuff before you started to notice life was starting to improve?
Mm. Yeah, I quit in end of August, and then I it was like September, probably until like March or April. So like a solid, what, like 7 months
Hmm
of like really sitting in it, like and really doing really deep, intense work.
hmm
And then I started to notice that like the extinction bursts were less severe. They were happening less frequently. Like I felt like I had a little bit more capacity to like not only sit with them, but also just like I was like, oh, maybe I can like start my business or I noticed that I had just had more room and more space to like work on other stuff. Like I was like almost kind of getting bored at that point, right? Because and I was like, okay, I'm ready, so
Yeah.
it probably took like 6 or 7 months of like deep in the eye of the storm work before I felt like I could take something else on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And those 6 months were those 6 months that you had a hiatus from work, you were solely focused on like getting into your storm.
Correct. I am lucky that I was still living with my parents.
Yeah.
And so I had that opportunity. And I know that a lot of people don't have that opportunity. So I feel really grateful that I can and was supported by them in that
Yeah,
way. So
for
I could
sure.
do that work so that I can feel better and now support other people again.
That's amazing. So a question is definitely pressing on my heart here that I'm curious about. For those people, like you're saying, that can't take a 6 month
Yeah.
hiatus, right? Like
Yeah.
let's say fathers and wives of children and houses and families and all these things. What do you, and in your professional opinion, now that you're helping these types of people, what's a reasonable expectation and timeline that these people should have when going through this kind of stuff?
It's so hard to give timelines because we're all so different.
Hmm
And there isn't like a set time. It took me 6 months. It might take someone less. It might take someone longer,
hmm
depending on how much time you're dedicating towards it. And I also think that even if you have a full plate, if it's your value to create change in your life, you will find time to even do very simple practices. Like if that's important to you,
hmm
you will find time to regulate your nervous system and meditate and do yoga and move your body and get better sleep and do all these different kinds of practices if that's really what you want in your life and if you want to create change.
Yeah, I'm interesting. Okay, I want to go on this a little bit more.
Yeah.
I want some of this coaching professionalism to come out here. So,
Yeah.
I'm working on a book that I'm writing right now, and in the book I have a chapter on self-love. And
Mm,
one of the statements in that chapter says that people don't invest time in things they don't care about. So how are you supposed to work and invest in yourself if you don't love yourself? So when you
yep.
say like people, like you're really going to want to have to put time into it in this generation, in this world, right? Where we're having to work on that kind of stuff, right? Because as we know from former generations, there wasn't a lot of, or any emphasis on self-care, right? So
Or mental
what,
health in general.
or mental health in general, it was a huge
Yeah.
stigma.
Right.
So for those people that don't love themselves, for those people that don't want to put any effort into improving themselves because they don't love themselves, what are some first steps that they can take?
Recognizing that, becoming aware of that, because
Mhm.
you can't change anything if you're not aware that it's a problem. Awareness is step number one, always.
Love it.
And so just being able to become aware of like, I don't love myself.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a great start,
Right.
right? And I think another thing is like really connecting to your values. Like, what's important to you,
Mhm.
right? I have this really cool values activities that I do with a client. I'm sure you can find a version of it online, but it's like figuring out like what is important and
Mhm.
why is it important to you. Because we don't, like you said, we don't do anything if it's not important to us because we don't care,
Right. Is
right?
it the value cards?
Yeah, there's like little I do with clients like they're little words and like you have like 70 words and you have to pick what's important and not and then you have to get to 10. So it's
Yeah.
like, figuring out like the most important stuff. And of course a lot is important, but like we're all going to have different values because we're
Right.
different people and we have different life experiences. And then it's really like what's one little thing that you can do to improve? Like my coach always tells me like how can you make it 2% better? It's just 2%. I'm not saying you got to make it 90% better. That's impossible right off the
Mhm.
bat. But how can we make things 2% better? Like, can I go on a minute walk? Can
Mhm.
I put my hand on my heart and take a deep breath? Like, I think people think it's like we have to do these big, consistent practices. It's like, but it starts small.
Right. No, it's a compounding effect, right?
Exactly.
Small, consistent changes over a long period of time produce massive results.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's super cool. That's actually right along the lines of the book that I'm writing. It's called The Power of 1%. And it's
Yeah.
all about making those 1% changes in your life to produce massive
Mhm.
results.
Right.
Yeah, kind of the analogy I teach people and what I tell a lot is like, okay, now picture this. Let's say you're working on losing weight and
Mm.
you love whole milk, right? If you switch from whole milk to 2% milk. And let's say you're drinking a daily average of about 2 cups, which from my understanding is somewhere in the nutritional okays. Um, Switching from whole milk to 2% milk over the course of 2 years, that's about a deficit of 14 pounds just from switching from whole milk to 2% milk. You don't have to drink it
Right.
less. You
Right.
don't, yeah. And honestly, after 2, 3 weeks, you won't even notice the change in the flavor.
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
there's 14 pounds worth of deficit there over a 2 year period. Now, of course, there are so many other factors, right, than just
Totally.
milk, but it's those types of changes that can be consistent over time that really
Mhm.
do help people. I love it.
Yeah.
So, Gabby, thank you so much about sharing some of your skills, your experience, your knowledge. I love all of that. I think values, like you said, are so important. So once people have self-awareness, they check their values, then what?
Then it's figuring out if you need support or not, I think, because
Mhm.
there's so much support available. And one of the biggest things I tell clients is like the fact that you reached out is a huge strength
Mhm.
because we can't do this by ourselves. Like we're social beings. We are meant for connection.
Mhm.
That's how we're wired. That's how our brain is wired. We used to live in tribes and villages and
Right.
communities, right? Like we're supposed to help one another and that connection in and of itself is regulating. Like
Yeah.
this, even us talking, we
Mhm.
are co-regulating each other
Mhm.
with our energy,
Right.
right? And like there are so many platforms now that you can find support, even if you don't have a lot of money. Like there are so many things out there that you
Mhm.
can look for to find support if you feel like that's what you need.
Yeah,
A lot of
it's
us need it.
she's preaching truth. She's absolutely preaching truth. That's awesome. Thank you, Gabby. So I'm curious now, kind of to segue into my next question. Looking back at your life, right? Your perfectionism, your
Mhm.
anxiety, this pain,
Yeah.
the kind of everything that you've had to experience in your life, right, that has ultimately shaped you into the person you are now. What can you appreciate about all the hard parts of your journey?
That I literally wouldn't be who I am without those experiences.
Hmm.
Like, we all suffer, but like I really do think that there's meaning to it and there's a reason for it.
Hmm.
Like we have to go through some of these things in order to appreciate what it's like. Like I appreciate every day. I'm gonna get emotional. Like I appreciate every day that I feel good in my body because I did it for so long.
Right.
And like it gives you such a I am so grateful. Like I'm grateful for that part, those parts of me and those versions of me that were struggling in order for me to get to this place. Like and how much hard work I had to go through in order to like finally feel good in my body. Like I literally never thought I was gonna even have a day without pain,
Yeah, that
a
makes
day
sense.
without anxiety, right? A day
Hmm.
without feeling like I have to be perfect and overachieve and like I'm here. What? Like, and I think it's like if I can do it, like someone who's like stubborn and, like it took a while, like I always tell clients like you will get there if you don't quit. The only way of not getting to where you want to be is if you quit.
Right.
And it's like you can do it if you take these little steps over time, kind of like we talked about. But it's like I just have so much love and gratitude for all those versions of myself that she was only doing the best that she could in any given moment.
Hmm.
And just like, again, so much love and gratitude and compassion. Like,
Hmm.
we did it, girl. Like we're here, like we
Yes,
did.
that's it's truly powerful to see how appreciative you are of your story, right? To have a deep level of gratitude for yourself and your trials it's really inspiring,
Thank
and
you.
it's really powerful. Yeah, congratulations,
Thank you.
congratulations on your success. Um, so my last question for you, for those people just getting into the realm of mental health, those people
Yeah.
just having that moment, kind of like what you had of, oh shoot, I've got nothing left in the tank, I need help.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for those people?
That it's normal, that we all feel like this in our life, and that you're not alone. Like so many people are either going through that or have been through it. And if you want to create change, it's possible. And also, like one of my favorite quotes, like nothing changes if nothing changes.
You
Like
always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got.
exactly. It's the definition of insanity. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect to feel and be different. That's not, unfortunately, how our brain works. Our brain operates from the past. And so if we want to create something different, we have to do something different.
Mhm.
And I know it feels really terrible right now for people who are just getting into their journey. And trust me, like I have so much empathy for that because there are days where it felt like it would never get better. It always gets better. Things are always, the only thing that's consistent in our life is change. Things are always shifting and changing. Like things will get better and they will shift in some way. And if you want to create the change, like it's up to you to do that. And like I said, there's so much support available for you in order to help you through some of these really dark moments. But like there is light at the end of the tunnel. Like the sun will come out again, I promise. Like I really thought it wasn't going to for me, and it did with the
Yeah.
right support and with the hard work and dedication.
Yeah, and your passion speaks volumes, which I hope that you as a listener is listening to this and seeing that there is help and there are people out there who truly care, right? Because
Mhm.
Gabby is definitely one of those people.
Yeah.
Gabby, thank you so much for coming on and answering my 5 questions. I know they're not easy, and when I dig, I know it's not easy, but I really appreciate you hanging in there and answering those questions. So by way of the support that you recommend people, tell us a little bit more about where people can find you, discover you, find your programs, what you do with your programs, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's all on my website. So GabbyWnekCoaching.com is going to be the best place for people to go and to like read about my story and the program that I have. I'm on Instagram as well, the same thing, Gabby Wnek Coaching. And then I'm also still doing therapy as well through a website called Grow, but those are only for clients that are in Illinois because I'm only licensed in that state. But in terms of coaching, it's definitely like my website, and people can book a discovery call to see if working together would be a good fit.
Okay, awesome, guys. And just so you know, that link will be in the description. So make sure to go check that out. It's going to be under the section saying, check out what Gabby's doing. So that will be there. Gabby, thank you so much for coming on my show. I really, really appreciate it. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your grit and your passion for helping people get to a better plane of existence. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you so much for creating this platform where people can share their stories and can help other people. I'm so grateful.
It's my pleasure. Cool. And for all of you who have listened up to this point, thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this episode. Obviously, it was heartfelt, it was powerful, it was amazing, and you definitely have some amazing skills to take with you to share with friends and family and for yourself. Guys, if you haven't already, again, I invite you with my 2 big asks, right? Make sure to join the Wellness Center tribe, like, subscribe, hit the follow button. And at this point, please go and leave us a 5-star review, drop us a comment, give Gabby a shout out, let her know how amazing she is. Guys, just so you know, I am always looking for guests to come on the show. My big mantra is no story is too big, no name is too small. If you have a story, I want to share it all. You can contact me. My email is chase@thewellnesscenter.life. Again, that's chase@thewellnesscenter.life. Let me know you want to come on the show. I can get you a link so you can get booked for some of my next available times. Guys, if you want to know more about what I'm doing on my day-to-day basis, you can go to www.thewellnesscenter.life, where I am using full body red light therapy to rejuvenate every single cell in your body, 1 session at a time. Guys, thank you so much again for tuning in. We both really appreciate it, and we hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you on the flip side. Peace out.